Israeli officials are signaling that they plan to resume their offensive, the military offensive, as soon as this pause expires. The defense minister, Yoav Gallant, said yesterday, quote, any further negotiations will be held under fire. Is Israel rejecting calls from the U.S. to hold off on its offensive in order to try to continue negotiations?
Well, first, Dana, just to be clear about the terms of this deal, Israel has already agreed that it will continue to pause fighting day by day after the end of the 4 days, as long as Hamas keeps releasing hostages. So the ball is really in Hamas's court. If Hamas wants to see an extension of the pause in fighting, it can continue to release hostages. If it chooses not to release hostages, then the end of the pause is its responsibility, not Israel's, because it is holding these hostages completely illegitimately and against all bounds of human decency or the laws of war.
So just to be clear,
so
if
really, we will see what Hamas ends up choosing to do.
Yeah, so to be clear, if Hamas, after this 4-day pause is over, says, okay, here's the next list of hostages that we will release, Israel will continue its military pause. No question.
That is correct. 10 hostages per day for as many days as Hamas releases 10 hostages. Israel will continue the pause in the fighting. That's part of the terms of the deal that Israel agreed to. That's a commitment Israel has made. And now, as I said before, the ball is in Hamas's court.
Have any of the hostages who have been freed provided any insight or intelligence to Israel and U.S. officials that could help locate those still in Gaza?
We are just at the beginning of learning about the debriefings of those hostages, so I will withhold comment until there can be more time for that to take place. We're just talking about the last couple of days that hostages have been released, and the early hours have really been much more about caring for their trauma, for their pain, and also getting them reunited with their families. So it's going to take a little while for us to get that information, for Israel to get that information, but you can be sure that Israel is focused on learning anything it can about whereabouts, locations, and other information based on conversations they have with the released hostages in the days ahead.
Another major aspect of this deal is that it is allowing for significant amounts of desperately needed humanitarian aid, fuel, medicine, water, food, to enter Gaza. President Biden said there are mechanisms in place to ensure those supplies go to civilians and not Hamas. What are those mechanisms, and do you have any indication that they have been in place, or has Hamas actually benefited from this pause?
Well, first, Dana, there's the inspection mechanism. The Israelis at a crossing called Nitzana check all of the trucks before they go in through the Rafah crossing into Gaza. And they check to make sure that it is, in fact, humanitarian supplies and not goods that could help Hamas in its military campaign. Second, those trucks go to UN depots and to other humanitarian organizations that are vetted and trusted partners. And once they are in the hands of the United Nations and humanitarian organizations, they are distributed directly to the people. And we have seen this work over the course of the last several weeks as humanitarian assistance has ramped up. We've seen it work, that it's actually getting to people and that it's not being diverted into the hands of Hamas. But that's something that we have to continue to focus on an ongoing basis. President Biden stays in close touch with the Israeli leadership on this, with the UN leadership and with others to make sure, in fact, the aid is getting to where it belongs, which is the innocent people who are suffering.